Welcome to the first unhinged episode on the channel. I planned to do these, but time she goes faster than I realize. The unhinged episodes are not scripted. I do have notes in front of me so that I can remember some key details. No script, straight from the cuff, no bullshit. And first, I have to pay bills, so I will tell you that if you like my content, please like and subscribe. It tells YouTube that storytelling like this matters, and I get sick of repeating myself. But yeah, it does help small channels like mine. It matters like tremendously. So, caveat: this is going to get into things that get people to argue, and I'm going to say this probably. I don't know. Maybe I'll repeat myself. Who the hell knows at this point? But this is not a political channel. I'm not getting into political commentary. I don't care if you're left wing, right wing, no wings. I give no shits. I just don't. And I am so exhausted by the political debate. It's just yuck. Both wings go to the same bird. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So I woke up a few weeks ago after, I guess it was more than a few weeks ago, after a certain list dropped. I avoided looking at anything because yuck. I'm a person who kind of internalize, like when I read victim statements and stuff, which some of us see movies playing in our head and put ourselves in the shoes of a victim. That's not healthy, so I can't read the stuff. I have seen some videos, and that was enough to turn my stomach, but it pretty much told me what I already suspected. But it got me to thinking, if we are so disgusted by leadership and we are so unhappy with having rulers, have we always had them? Do we as humans keep choosing this? Have humans always had presidents, rulers, kings, dictators? And the answer is no. For 95% of our history, we have not lived like this. But if peasants outnumber the rulers, why in the hell do we keep accepting this? To answer that, we have to go back, not 2,000 years and not 5,000 years, but hundreds of thousands of years. We lived for a long time in small hunter-gatherer bands, 20 to 100 people. Whoever led was usually the strongest, the best hunter, the guy that could provide the most food. It was situational leadership, not a ruling class. There were no permanent kings, no standing armies, and no tax collectors. We ruled ourselves in small groups. Now, those small groups sometimes would battle and wage war on each other over territory, but you got to remember the population of the planet was way less and there was more room. It was easier just to kind of spread out than to kill each other over one square plot of land. There was no stored surplus, no cities. They weren't all nomadic tribes, but they were highly mobile. So what changed? Agriculture changed. It changed everything. Back in about 10,000 BCE, farming kind of begins. Not maybe farming as we know it, but agriculture begins. And yes, I know from my conspiracy theorists out there that recent digs, like in Göbekli Tepe, says we may be older than we think, and I'm down with that. I'm doing an episode on that. I'm working on research and writing that right now. However, let's go with archaeology just for the sake of this discussion. So 10,000 BCE, farming begins, and now we have a surplus, and that surplus needs to be guarded. The population explodes because now we're settling down. Our lives are extending a little bit longer because we're getting better at building homes and keeping heat in and the elements out. So now we have surplus grains that need to be stored, through bad weather. Someone needs to guard it. Someone needs to defend it. And now you have disputes. Now war leaders emerge. The first rulers weren't born royal, they were useful. Now we need to talk about the first kings. I'm going to say this again. We're just using modern archaeology's explanation of things because otherwise this episode would never end. And the reason I say that, just briefly, is the King's List talks about certain rulers ruling for over 25,000 years. Well, we humans today, at least, don't live that long, so it gets a bit complicated. I will be talking about that in a scripted, not unhinged episode. The first king showed up in Egypt about 3100 BCE, and Mesopotamia about 2600 BCE. The first royal families formed when war leaders won repeatedly. And then, of course, because they had power and control, they have control of all the resources. Next come the claims of divine backing. you know, ordained by God, or this pharaoh was a descendant of that God. And we humans are dumb puppets that will sit and go, okay, you must be put here by God because you won this war, and we continue to let them rule without question. Then that ruler sows his wild seed, creates a shit ton of sons, and one of those sons gets daddy's chair, and the cycle continues. And that's usually pretty much across the planet. And that's where royal blood comes from. Royal blood is just successful power that lasted long enough to become tradition. That is exactly how the Anglo-Saxon warrior kings like William the Conqueror got established. War, land control, church approval, dynasty. So if we look into the more recent past, do we have any places that are less centralized and less control? We do, and they're a clusterfuck, aka Somalia. The collapse of the central government has led to fragmented authority, warring tribes, competing factions. When central authority disappears in large modern states, instability often fills that vacuum. We've kind of seen that happen before. Small groups can govern pretty efficiently, but large, complex nations struggle with coordination. So, once again, if we are so frustrated by our rulers or governing body, why do we keep choosing this? Because 330 million people can't operate by consensus. Hell, most of us can't even agree on the color of the sky. External threats require us to be organized. Infrastructure, courts, the justice system, trade agreements, that all require structure, and someone has to maintain that structure. Outnumbering rulers doesn't amount to a hill of shit if the population is divided and the rulers are organized. So for 95% of our existence, we've had no rulers or kings. But for the last 5,000 years, that's been primarily the situation. Maybe rulers aren't ancient tradition, but they are the price of scale. Can large civilizations function without them? I believe they can, but we as human beings need to evolve and quit bickering and arguing over the minutia for real. For most of human history, we've lived without rulers. And then we grew and we needed coordination. Coordination creates hierarchy. Hierarchy creates power, and concentrated power has always tested human character. Maybe the question isn't whether rulers have always existed, but whether we remember how easily power drifts beyond its original purpose. What to do about that, I have no idea. This is not a professional operation. I am just a middle-aged white chick in a converted garage shooting YouTube videos, which is why we question everything.